Today, I have invited one of the best producer and businessmen in animation industry, the co-founder and the president of Lion Forge Animation, Carl Reed.
Oh, thank you, Harry. It means so much coming from you.
Carl, thank you for your time being with me. And you know most Korean partners, so please say hello to Korean partners. You are the most wanted person in Korean animation industry.
You know, I think there's a wave about to happen where, the rest of the world is going to descend upon Korea for content. And I hope you guys still keep me in your good graces because I believe that it's coming. And once it starts, it's not going to stop.
All right, good. And most of the Korean studios are aware of who you are and what your company do, but there is also a new beginners to join the SPP program. So for them, please briefly introduce who you are and what Lion Forge Animation is.
Great. So Lion Forge started as a publishing company in 2011, and we published what we call visual literature, which is graphic novels, comics, and Webtoon. And we did that with the eye for, we wanted to create content that was more than just superheroes. We wanted to create kids content, middle grade content, teen content, content starring and produced by creators who may have been disenfranchised in our market. And that was our goal. And we grew pretty rapidly and acquired some other companies. And now we're a mainstay in the publishing side. And in 2018, we also spun off our animation studio. And in doing that, we have the same mission. We want to create content from people that may be overlooked, from places that may be overlooked. And we feel like that's our advantage, that we are seeking the best before anyone else even knows they exist.
Oh, that's very important part, seeking the best even before others aware that means that you have a very good eyes. And in that point, you've been doing a couple of several co-production with Korean studios recently. Is there any reason why you focus on the Korean content?
You know, throughout the years, Korea has been seen as a go-to source for production work and, from Japan, from the States, from other places. And as I was exposed to original content from Korea, I got to wondering why hasn't it necessarily had its kind of golden era of IP being exported outside of Korea. The content was world class and original and had a completely different perspective. And as I asked around to buyers and asked around to partners and wonder why, they just weren't aware or either a little apprehensive about doing things different at all, right? So luckily, at the same time, the streaming wars happened and there's a constant need for more content. And not only does that need of content increase just the amount, but also who's being served is just as important as the amount of content as well. You have shows like Kingdom and other shows that come out of Korea and are #1 in the US for a week on Netflix. You have things like Parasite, which go on to win the Academy Award. And really, those are signs that we are validated, like we're doing the right thing. And we think that, if our partners are, given the opportunity to shine, then and they already are in their own content, I don't see a way that it could lose.
All right, since you are in the comic book publishing industry and also in animation industry, how do you see the future of Korean webtoon? It's a slightly different from the comic book publishing, but anyway, it's been a huge success in Southeast Asian countries and also some part of the North America and Europe. So how do you see that Webtoon in relationship with animation?
You know, just like the animation, I look to the Webtoon industry coming out from Korea and a lot of the integration into some of the mobile applications and everything as the next level of what is going to happen here in North America and in Europe. I think that there's a boutique market for it here now. Hardcore comic fans, hardcore manga fans have found out that, wait, there's some really good content that's being presented on Webtoon. But the retailers and the existing industry has been apprehensive because they make money by people coming in their doors and giving them money for paper. And so they actively fight against, you know, new content being created in a different manner. So but the opportunity has been there for a number of years, almost a decade now. And when, for instance, I'm in Korea and I take an elevator up and a 80-year-old woman gets on the elevator and on her phone, she has a Webtoon going entertaining herself in the elevator. That's a sign to me that these retailers and these companies are slowing down the growth of the market inadvertently in trying to protect their existing business. Right now in North America, that business is primarily adults and primarily people from the age of 25 to 50, right? And very male-centered and very one note. When it accounts for a very small number of the population. But if mobile gaming is any indication and the proliferation of quick, hyper casual or casual mobile gaming and the expansive explosion across all audiences from preschoolers and 2-year-olds who their first experience on a tablet is that to senior citizens, then why can't the same thing happen with Webtoons? I see it as a medium, and I do see it as that next level. The opportunity there is definitely a timing issue. I think there has to be, just similar to what we're doing in animation, there has to be someone who steps in and wants to take the time to cultivate that market and understands that it's going to be worth it. And then understands that when you show partners that you're really committed to their content, really committed to their work, and really committed to trying to change the industry and bring that future, then over time you're seeing these gains and you're seeing these milestones being reached. We'll be at the future in no time, and we'll have 2-year-olds reading Webtoons, and I'll be in the elevator and see a senior woman reading a Webtoon here in the States.
Well, I also love to meet the older lady who were at the elevator. I'm curious what content she was enjoying. And so, is there any possibilities that you considering the animation based on the Webtoon content? Or is it just timing to see that comes out?
Actually, our animated content comes from everywhere. Right now, from our publishing side, we already bring some content over into animation, and other publishers will take or acquire or option or whatever some content from them as well. I think ultimately it boils down to the concept and the take on that concept. And to be honest, comics are at an all-time high with things like the Marvel films, each bringing in billions of dollars for their respective companies. It's now reaching the maturity of people actually understanding that this content is not only good content, but it's some of the best content. And that is not limited to US comics. That also extends to manga. That also extends to webtoons. And, again, it's a huge advantage and a huge preemptive advantage for someone that will kind of take that leap in advance in cultivating all of the best stuff in taking its content or taking it to animation or film.
Good. And back to the best content you mentioned, is there any specific genres or characters or storylines that you're looking for from the Korean producers?
More and more in the past, more and more things are changing. In the past, content had to be what was considered a global look, meaning, predominantly white looking characters like blonde hair, blue eyes, things of that nature. Now that is totally changed. From a viewer perspective, a lot of folks think it's far more interesting to get a story that's authentic to a location, seeing the foods that they eat, the way that what they do in the recreational time, how they spend holidays. But with that, in that same compelling story that's being told, but it's not being sanitized or changed. You keep that authenticity. And an old adage is that all stories have been told. The only thing that's new about these stories is that perspective. And when you have a new perspective, it may not be new to you, but it's definitely new to the rest of the world. And the same thing here, there's a lot of groups that are underserved and have not told their perspective on certain stories. And right now we are at a time where not only is there a hunger for content, but there's a hunger for micro communities and becoming a part of those communities. So there's an Asian diaspora across the world that is hungry for content. There's a group of people that are like, you know what? I'm curious about how someone in Korea experiences a horror situation or a romance situation. And the old concept of sanitizing that content for the global market. Now, there's some things from a standards and practices standpoint that we still have to adhere to, and some things that are more appropriate for certain audiences, but definitely characters being a little more authentic to the place that they're birthed from is more, I would say, more popular than ever.
Wow, great to hear that because before the pandemic, we were meet at the overseas market and chat over the coffee and drink. And through that time, we understand the trend, what's going on in your market and what's going on in our market. But last 2 years, we are blocked. And so we just hear from the newsletters, is there any specific or big shift in the North American market regarding the genres? And you briefly mentioned that the characters are changing and story ways to global to in more local ways. Can you see any changes in the buyer's point, means the channels and platform?
Absolutely. From my experience, we are at a time where there's more opportunity for content of all genres, even things that would have been a no-no 5 years ago. Content that is for multiple age generations all in one, family style series. There's a demand for that now versus, hey, this has to be preschool. This has to be, 6 to 8. And there's a little flexibility. There's some flexibility on bridge. There's some flexibility on teen. There's a demand for adult animated content, action, horror, romance, etc., more than there has been, at least from Hollywood, that there's ever been before. And I think what we need to do at this moment is kind of grasp that. And what I mean by grasp that is there's certain opportunities that we need to react to before they shift, because we need some successes in alternative or new in Hollywood's sense style animation. So what does a animated horror film look like being released wide in Hollywood? You know, these things before would not have been necessarily considered, but we need some real wins in those to say, this is not a trend. This is not something that's short term. This is something that's here to stay, and buyers, companies, investors can continue to invest in this content, knowing that at the end of the day, there's going to be a return.
Yes, it feels like we are in chaos, and the only way to survive is to have a vision and a strong passion, and firmness is one of the way to survive this chaos period. And that also means the opportunities, right?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself.
And there is another big shifting. It's called the platform. Usually we have a traditional channels are the big buyers now, but now, yes, they are still, but we have new buyers called the platform, OTT. How do you see the transition or the changes in the market because of the OTT?
You know, you just mentioned that this is the Wild West, right? This is, you know, a really nebulous time, and people are trying to gain a firm footing in what the future will be. And so you'll see platforms that have great ideas like Quibi that just, you know, don't seem to make it for whatever reason. You'll have platforms that fly under the radar that no one pays attention to, that has a consistent audience and is able to sustain itself from a revenue standpoint without you know, the global you know, Disney's and Netflix's even catching wind of it. Also, you'll have independent creators and producers that reach out and cultivate and build and grow their own audience that they own. They don't have to ask platforms for metrics or for access to those customers or those eyes or those viewers. They own those viewers. They're on their YouTube page, they're on their platform, they're inside their video game. So they're able to release content direct to a community that they are a part of. And that's never been done before. It's never been seen before. And it's the reason why a baby shark is a phenomenon. It's the reason why, you know, some things that you may say, oh, that'll never work. And it's put out direct to consumer and it's proven wrong. And those old rules of thumbs are turned on their head.
Mm-hmm. Right. You mentioned that the Wild West, you need a gun and then travel, right? Without gun, you're lost.
Well, you know, the winners are going to be folks who, you know, have the most ammunition in their guns. So, you know, as the platforms and the content distribution is growing and changing, so does content production. And it's growing leaps and bounds. But from a cost, a time to market, and a quality perspective, all of those quality has to stay consistent, while cost and speed are going to have to work itself down. And the folks that can really control those inputs and get an adequate output on the outside and have a way of releasing content to the market in a controllable way, they're going to be the ones who have the 10 shots at series for a low cost versus one shot at a win. So now, you know, there's a lot of opportunity on the innovation side, both from content getting to market, but also how that content is being produced.
I see, but because of the pandemic, the offline markets are almost closed. And
Absolutely.
anyway, they will be back. because of vaccination and the time passed. What do you expect if that comes? Do you still think that the online business like what we do today will be hybrid, or they will be replaced by the offline and back to the old days, or there will be a new eras in overseas market? How do you feel?
You know, nothing replaces face-to-face time. It's really hard to beat that. You can talk casually with someone and learn so much more about their vision and about what their perception of the market is in person than you can over back-to-back Zooms where you're limited to that hour and you have to end at the end of that hour. You can't meander. You don't have a commute home to kind of consider things. It's now stacked on each other's. I think if I had to predict, I think that there's a ton of advantages to virtual, and we're seeing those advantages now, and we had to begin seeing those advantages. Those advantages will not go away. We'll be able to meet just like we're meeting now and have a conference anytime we are able to, but it's not going to replace that person-to-person engagement. Another thing that I don't think will go away is the buying cycle has altered because of these shifts in markets. If you're not able to go to a market, how does that affect your buying cycle? You know, I think it's expanded people's buying cycles, but it's also created a lot of confusion because when do we show this stuff? How do we show this stuff? What's the best way to do it? Am I killing the viability of my project by pitching it over Zoom? I don't know. So while there's a lot of uncertainty, I think we've seen positive effect. We've seen a productivity kind of spike, for better or for worse, because people are working harder. And you would think that the commute time and the lunch times and the coffee coffee maker conversations that take away from actual business would just still exist. But in these Zoom eras, people just work through those and they work all night and all day. And that's one thing I think we all need to be concerned about, because burnout is real too. And we're actually working a lot more in these Zoom and virtual days.
I see, I agree. And I also still miss that old, not that old, but a couple of years overseas market and human touch. Yes, because
Exactly.
we are human, not AI machine. So we'll see anyway soon. And before I let you go, do you have a final talk to our Korean partners and industry workers?
You know, one thing I'll reiterate, and I have said it many times in this conversation, I think that Korea produces some of the most compelling and quality content for world-class quality, world-class cost, world-class storytellers, and things of that nature. And not everyone has caught on to that, but you know, more and more they are. The Netflixes have caught on. You know, the big guys have caught on, and so that's a great thing. And I think the more that folks start to respect original Korean content, it only enhances the content marketplace. And we at Lion Forge Animation would love to be a part of that. And we want to, you know, be a part of helping drive that change. And so we look forward to meeting everyone that we haven't met before. We look forward to, you know, re-engaging with everybody that we have met and, you know, leaping into the future together.
All right, so what if the Korean producers have a great idea to pitch you, how they can contact you and pitching you?
You know, I'll be participating in SPP. And so, you know, sending a note through SPP or reaching out to Harry. We formed a, you know, partnership where he's definitely been like a huge resource on our side and able to really help us navigate the market. and it's in an indispensable fashion. So, you know, and he's also right next door in Seoul. So you can either reach out through SPP, through Harry, or another one of our partners, and I'm sure you'll be able to get to us. And we're never too far away.
I see. So you still in this Earth, not to other planet.
Oh no, we're completely virtual. We live in computers now.
Yes, it was a great honor to be your partners in Korea. And yes, please contact me if you speak in Korean is comfortable. All right, this has been the great interview with Carl Reed. And thank you for your time, Carl.
As always, thank you. Thank you so much, Harry.
Bye.